As the volume of work grows, an application may need additional resources to maintain its desired performance levels. Azure AppServices can scale out to as many as 30 instances. And the cost will depend on the number of instances that you have and the pricing tier that you've configured for your AppService plan. And today I'm going to show you how you can configure Autoscaling for your Azure AppService plan, and then I'm going to simulate a load so that you can see how it all works. So let's get started. So first thing is let's understand the scale up in Azure AppService. So scale up means that you're introducing more CPU, memory and disk space to your existing instance, and scale out means that you're introducing more instance of it could be your VM, it could be your app service, but in this video I'll be focusing on app services. Your app service should be at least in standard 1 tier. Also, if we go here, the auto scaling guidance from Azure Architecture Center, you can get an idea on how you can configure scaling on a production system. So if you look here, you can see the type of services they support. Auto scaling like Azure Virtual Machines, Service Fabric and App Service and Cloud Services. And also when it comes to functions, it's a fully managed service by Azure. So I'll link these below. You can go through these if you want to implement in a production system. Alright, now I'm in my Azure portal. So I want to create some resources to test the load. So I have one script here. This will create the web application and it will deploy a sample application that I have created that consumes a lot of CPU. So let me show you that application. So it's a basic web application that has only one controller. So basically what this does is that it gets an input, a number, and it will calculate the number of primes that are between that number and 1. So basically, as you can see, this is a high CPU, basically CPU intensive task. So after computing this, it will give us the number of primes and the time that it took to calculate it and the AppService instance ID that this calculated on. So let's run this code on my PowerShell, Azure PowerShell, and create the resources that we need. Now let me copy this script. So I'm going to highlight it and copy, and then I'm going to go to my PowerShell window and let me clear this up, and I'm going to execute the code. So this will basically create the app service and app service plan and all that is required. And also one thing to notice is that it is creating an app service plan of tier standard 1 because you need at least this tier to configure auto scaling on Azure. So let's wait for another 2 minutes to see our resources on Azure. As you can see, the script ran and it got to a completion, and I am outputting this URL here. Let me go to this browser and paste it in here. Yeah, as you can see, it calculates the number of primes that is less than the number that I'm passing here, and it shows me the time that it took, and it's sending me the instance ID of the app service. So let me go to my resource group and show you the apps that I've created. So basically I didn't go through all this UI, but I used a PowerShell script. Now let's go into my app service that I just created. The next thing that we should do is configure our scale out rule. So if I go here to these tabs and to this one, scale out, and to there are two things that you can do. You can manually increase the number of instances, and you can increase the instances automatically based on a metric. I'm going to click this one because what I need to do is scale our application automatically. So if you go down and you're going to see these parameters. So yeah, as you can see, we have the minimum number of instances and maximum number of instances. So here I'm going to put 5. This is, I don't want this to scale more than that. And then I'm going to add a rule here. So this shows you the history of CPU usage because that's the metric that I selected here. So I'll be using that same metric. these are the configurations that we should do for your applications to automatically scale. So I'll be configuring this to 60%, but so basically what this means is that if your application exceeds 60% of CPU usage, it will trigger an increase of your instance count. So, and this one here, this means the duration that it waits until it tries to scale. So basically it will monitor your usage for around 10 minutes. If it is there, the load is still there for even for 10 minutes, it will increase the instance count. So I'm going to change this to 1, and it is not recommended by Azure to do it, because in production systems, but since this is a test, I'll be changing it to 1, and then and I want the instance count to increase by 1 instance. And also there's another thing that you can change, and that is cooldown minutes. That what that basically means is that after doing a scale up or scale down on anything, it waits this number of minutes until it starts to look into a new scaling event. So basically I will change this to 1 as well, and I'm going to configure this rule. Yeah, as you can see, I have added this one. And also you must remember that when you add this one, it just scales up and up. So basically you should introduce another rule that scales down when the load subsides. I'm not going to do that in this demo. I will just save it. Yeah, as you can see, I have saved the configuration. Now what we need to do is trigger a load from our tool JMeter and see how this scales. Now that we have configured the autoscale rule, let me open up my JMeter tool that will simulate the load. So I have created a simpler setup here. I'm not a JMeter expert. I just added this HTTP request, and that will send the HTTP requests. And here I have configured that the ramp up period, or the time that this test should run, I've configured it to be 900, and there'll be 500 users accessing the site. So let me make it 600 and see what happens. Yeah, so if I go here, I'll be able to see the HTTP responses while this test runs. So let's run this. So I'm gonna click this one and see what happens. Okay, so I'm getting the responses. So as you can see, this is, it shows me the request that we are sending it to our AppService, and it's showing me the response. So basically, as you can see, this is taking around 5 seconds to complete because we have passed this number here, which is bigger than the one that I'm passing here. So yeah, so let's wait for some time to see the changes. So I'm going to go to my AppService again and to this tab, and if you go here to this Run History tab, you will be able to see the instance count of your application. Now what we have to do is we just have to wait and see what happens. So let's start a timer, and let's see what happens. As you can see, I have been running this test for around 15 minutes, and if I switch to my JMeter, as you can see, I'm getting successful response at the end, but initially I got few error responses. This is because this was a heavy load to the system before it scaled, so it just it couldn't serve all the requests that I just sent. But in real world scenarios, this won't really happen within this small period of time. This load change will not happen. If you also look here, as I switch through these HTTP requests, you're going to see that I'm getting served from different instances because the instance number changes. So also there's one thing that you can observe. If you go into my AppService and the AppService plan, and if you go into the CPU usage, you'll be able to see how it performed. So basically here it was initially it was around 100%. Then as it scaled, the average went down, as you can see. Let me go back to my Scaleout tab and see run history. So yeah, and as you can see, I have not 4 but 5 instances here. So it had scaled my application AppService plan to 5 instances. And also you might be wondering why it got to 5 instances, because it was only 4 instances when I checked before. The reason is, usually it takes some time for this application to update these statistics. So I'm sure when we checked earlier, it was 5 instances, but only now it got updated here. And always remember to clean up these resources after doing this kind of stuff. Otherwise, you're going to get a huge bill for all these instances. So I'm going to my resource group and let me delete everything. Hope you learned something new today. And if you have any questions or comments, leave them below. If you haven't already subscribed to my channel, and as always, thanks for watching.